And now I'm gonna tell you something that no Christian YouTuber is supposed to say. Hi beautiful people! So for this week's video, I'm gonna try another format. Let me know what you guys think. I really want to share some intimate details of my own history. Yes, I'm expecting a lot of backlash and people telling me I'm not a Christian or I'm lukewarm, but I'm trying to put all of those voices out of my head and just talk to you. You guys are inspiring this video. I get so many DMs and emails from this community, and a lot of you guys are saying you've had a really hard time fitting into the Christian mold, or that you've made choices that are making you feel distant from God, or making you feel like you're a bad person or you're a bad Christian. So I really want to talk to you and tell you where I'm coming from and give you some really intimate details of my own journey and the way I've maintained my Christianity and my relationship with Jesus through it all. Side note, I have been learning more about YouTube and the algorithm, and I realize they reward you for censoring yourself. So here's how we're gonna do it. Anyone ever watch Sex and the City? There's an episode where Charlotte demands some censorship at lunch.
How often do you guys have sex? Miranda, please. Let's just not use that word. Fine. How often do you guys color? Thank you. So coloring it is. Today we're talking about the agony and ecstasy of coloring. Here are the 7 distinct phases of my coloring journey. Phase 1, wanting happily ever after. One of my first videos was a story of my marriage and divorce. I mentioned that my husband cheated and I went on a journey of my own. Many of you write me and say you are a Christian and you're in an intimate relationship outside of marriage and it's causing you a lot of shame and guilt. It's making you feel separate from God. I want you to know that I've been there and I know how you feel. I've told you before, I led the chastity ceremony at my church when I was 15. I was told that if I stay pure, God will send my husband and we will live happily ever after.
Can you imagine walking down that aisle and your future husband standing there, and not only maybe it being your first kiss, but God willing, it being his first kiss too? I mean, how cool would that be?
By the time I was 22, I was living in LA, really immersed in church culture. I was on the worship team. I was having this private struggle inside of myself. I did not want to break my purity promise.
If she were to make mistakes, how would you feel?
I would be disappointed.
But my hormones were starting to go insane.
The hormones in this house are going bananas cream pudding.
At the risk of embarrassing myself, I will tell you guys that I thought about coloring from the moment I woke up until the moment I went to sleep. It was an all-consuming thought. I got so frustrated that it wasn't even out of rebellion or anger or anything. I just got to a point where I was like, I'm not doing this anymore, and I gave it away. And now I'm gonna tell you something that no Christian YouTuber is supposed to say, because we're all supposed to be advocating for everyone saving themselves for marriage. But this community is all about telling the truth and telling each other our stories, so I'm not gonna hide this from you guys. When the deed was done, I didn't feel horrible. I honestly felt like a weight had been lifted off of my shoulders. Those tormentative thoughts and that hormonal obsession subsided, and suddenly I felt like I could breathe. I definitely lost a sense of identity because my Christian identity was very wrapped up in whether or not I was pure. I know a lot of you guys relate to this. So now I put it in the back corners of my mind, and I realized this is the moment when I really started compartmentalizing myself. I put my intimate life here and my spiritual life here. They were separate. I did not want them to have anything to do with each other. So when I would walk into a church space or talk to my roommates, I just had the intimate life to the side, and I would look at them and be like, I'm pure, I'm fine, moving on. But as many of you know, when you start coloring, it's really hard to go back. So now I am in a full-blown coloring relationship with this guy. I would cry, I would feel tons of anxiety, I would know that God didn't want to look at me, that he didn't want to see me, that I needed to be ashamed of myself. So I was in this terrible pattern of, okay, I'm gonna stop. But what if he's my husband? Color again, go back to crying, I'll stop. And on and on and on. So I'm doing this cycle for over a year, and finally my boyfriend says, let's get married. Will that help you stop feeling all of this anxiety and shame? And I'm like, yes. So we start planning a wedding. Now, remember, I'm compartmentalizing everything. So I have this terrible feeling that this is the wrong thing for my life. But I am just like a runaway train. I will redeem this sin. I will make things better. I'm gonna get married and everything is gonna be okay. And then I can get my relationship with God back. Then he's gonna wanna talk to me again. So you can watch the other video for this, but after 2 years of marriage, my husband admits that he was cheating on me while we were dating. You guys, this is the moment that changed everything. The rug got pulled out from under me and I realized I'm not gonna have this quintessential happily ever after. Let me know in the comments if any of you guys have been cheated on. It's like jealousy, fear, rage, anxiety, self-doubt, all of these things rolled into this terrible ball at the pit of your stomach. Intimacy is so important. You give all of yourself to someone, and to know that they have given that to other people when you are supposed to be committed to each other is such a wild feeling. So I'm getting more and more bitter and resentful. I remember watching my husband sleep and just imagine hitting him in the face. I am not a violent person. I didn't go through with it, but I was hating this man. And in spite of these feelings of hate and rage, I was making a genuine effort to try to stay with my husband. I prayed a lot about forgiveness and healing. I thought I made a commitment to God, to my family. These vows were important, but at the end of the day, the resentment and rage took over and I cheated. Which brings me to the second phase of my coloring journey, revenge. I remember the moment so clearly, being in that bed, and I wasn't even present. I was just thinking, yeah, this is what you get. You hurt me, now I'm hurting you. It was just coloring out of revenge. When I cheated, I was actually out of town. So my husband picked me up from my trip, we drove home, and I remember it like it was yesterday. My husband and I are sitting on completely opposite sides of our long couch. And I remember there was a pause and he looked at me and said, "You smell like a man." I didn't say a thing, but I was thinking, ask me. I dare you to ask me, because I wanted to tell him everything. I wanted him to know that he hurt me and I hurt him back. I was ready to lay it all on the table. But no joke, you guys, he looks at me, we have this eye contact that's super intense. His face changed, got a little softer, and he goes, "What do you want for dinner?" I knew in that moment that he didn't want to talk about it. That he knew, but he didn't want to know. From here, my marriage really fell apart, as you can imagine, so I left. I didn't want to look at the situation, unpack it. I just wanted to heal without even trying, which does not happen. And here at phase 3, I wanted a shortcut to healing. You guys, I was so naive. I had no idea how cruel people can be in intimate relationships. So when I meet this guy, we'll call him William, I got played so hard. I was so depressed, so lost. My self-esteem was on the floor, and this guy rolled in like a boy in shining armor. He was so handsome, he said all the right things, he introduced me to his family. And for a moment I thought, wow, I get to rebound. I was still thinking in happily ever afters. I was like, great, I'm just gonna move from my marriage to this guy and live happily ever after. But it was the opposite.
Oh!